It's now just getting on to 8:30. I would love to join Wikipedia right now, but I'm the moderator.
Jump in, Sean. Jump in, brother.
I'll be moderate. I will moderate. You guys don't need a tunnel, you need a traffic cop. But that's Princeton, you see. I certainly want to give Dean Slaughter a chance to reply and say a few words, and then invite my other panelists to speak as well. Go on for as long as you want, but I will intervene in order to have enough chance to give the audience a chance to ask questions.
And you'll moderate.
And I'll be very moderate.
So, Mark, let me start where I agree with you. That seems like a better place to start. I don't think I could not agree more with your final statement that Princeton, and not just Princeton, the United States needs desperately to engage with the reality of the world, not the world as it is, and the world as it sees the United States. There is no single more important thing we could teach our students than to experience this country as others see us, and to be able to actually understand that perspective, not as anti-American or pro-American, but simply billions of lives lived in other places with other experiences. And if we are serious about providing the best possible education, that is essential. So I completely agree with you there, and I also think you're quite right that we do not have enough foreign speakers. I can tell you that I have begged Kofi Annan to come since my first year. Every year at the colloquium we invite Kofi Annan.
He wasn't on my list.
Well, fair enough. Boutros Ghali, I frankly don't think would attract anything like the crowd, and I think Kofi Annan really does.
Yeah, but Boutros has something to say.
We can debate it, but my point is...
You know what Kofi has to say.
Fine. My point is, I'm granting your point. So if you want to accept that I'm granting your point rather than arguing, I'm agreeing with you.
By inviting the wrong person.
Fine. I would agree with you that we should have invited most of the people on the list. I think that I absolutely agree that we ought to have more people from other countries in Princeton, and we do what we can, we don't do enough. So I would agree on that point. The wannabe in Washington point, I'm just going to dismiss, because I wouldn't be inviting these people if that's what I was trying to do. It's the wrong party. I would be inviting, I should have been inviting all the Democratic presidential candidates, except for this fact that I'm not about to go to Washington. I have 2 small sons, and I am very, very happy here in Princeton. But if I were, it wouldn't be this crowd. So we're just going to dismiss that.
Is that a Sherman-esque statement? You definitely will not go to Washington?
No, it's a statement that I'm certainly not going to Washington in Condi Rice's administration. It's impossible.
I agree with you. You're not going in Condi's administration. I think you might be interested in some future administrations.
And if so, why would I invite the people I'm inviting? This is a level of debate that I think is beneath you, but it's certainly beneath me. So, very important issue here that you raised and that Cornell raised that I think we should engage, which is, I think we share our ideal. And I'm a former law professor, Socratic, absolutely. My ideal would be to have any of these people, right, left, center, whatever, come to Princeton and get grilled. Absolutely. You and I think it would be not only extraordinary for Princeton, it would be extraordinary for the country, and we would both agree that what passes for debate in Washington is not real debate. So if that's our view of the best, then the real question is whether second best is worse than nothing. Because if you accept that some of these people will come and take questions, Condi Rice wanted to take questions, but for a very short period of time, others won't take questions at all. Now, at that point, should we say, which is a legitimate position to say, sorry, you want to come to Princeton? You got to be challenged. Otherwise, we don't want you. That's certainly a reasonable position. So, I think that is a reasonable position, and we could take it. Here's the argument on the other side. A great deal of the reason that we don't have actual debate, at least in Washington, and frankly I think in the country as a whole, is that we are so polarized that we are convinced we already know what the other side's going to say, what they're like. They have horns, depending on which side you're on, the right and the left and the right. You assume you know who they are, what they're going to say, and there's no reason to talk to them because you already know. Now, I started teaching at the University of Chicago, which many people thought that way about the left, and I moved to Harvard, and many people thought that way about the right. In both cases, my experience was actually being exposed to the person in question, seeing them as a human being, judging, not through the media or through the spin, but just encountering that person was a valuable thing that you could, as many people said to me about Condi Rice, they walked out absolutely opposed to what she said, but with a different view of who she was in saying it. Many people found they believed that she was sincere, even if they thought she was deeply deluded.
That's well said.
So there's the issue. Is it better to hear from these people, to at least be able to evaluate them on your own terms, and maybe to have your mind changed? Much better to question and grill, but even just hearing them will give you a sense of who these people are and may then trigger debates that you wouldn't have otherwise had on campus. Is that better as a second best than just saying what Sean said, we're going to cut ourselves off. We're a School of Public and International Affairs, but we don't like this government and we don't like these international affairs, so we're just going to seal ourselves off until such time as we get the kind of leaders we want who will come and engage with us the way we want. And I think that is a legitimate subject for debate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll be right in the middle of this, you know. Love both of you, I mean, for me, line 24 in the Plato's Apology, Socrates says, Poesia is the cause of main popularity. Bold speech, frank speech, candid speech, free speech that goes against the grain of any set of unarticulated assumptions and tacit presuppositions. Therefore, it is suspicious of perspectives across the board. It's not Socratic in the deep sense, you see. That's why you want to think of right or left, you know, those categories are just so misleading, you know. Let's leave that for Rush and O'Reilly and so forth and so on. Of course, there are those of us who are unabashedly leftists in the sense that we're deeply suspicious of elites and hierarchies, who don't want to be answerable to the demos, who don't want to be accountable to ordinary people, who don't want to be responsible to the least of these, invoking the 23rd chapter of Matthew. It's a part of my tradition, Hebrew scripture and New Testament. No doubt. But the Socratic mission of a university is not identical with my own project. I'm just one voice in that larger university that has a commitment to a Socratic in the name to ensure that we have a wholesale scrutiny and discussion. That's why I'm a bit, I understand, I think it's a very plausible and reasonable position to say, well, it's better to hear them about the scrutiny as opposed to not hearing it at all. I can understand that. But I think we need to be hardcore about scrutiny. We say, this is the kind of place where we have dialogue and debate and contestation. If you want to trot out your propaganda, you want your spin lines, go talk radio places where that kind of discussion takes place. I mean, the kind of thing we heard from Brother Mark. I mean, it was bold speech. It was frank speech. We appreciated that, you know. And the response from Anna Marie. It was honest, heartfelt, and we're just beginning to take off on this dialogue this evening. And rightly so. That's what we're all about.
Questions? Why don't we get into it?
Okay, good. There are microphones at either end. Excuse me. Wow! Gee, don't open up at once. Respect your elders. We're slower than you guys, okay? There are microphones at either end.
We got some over here, sir.
I mean, don't be shy on that end. Okay? Usually we go we usually go back and forth, you know? Not from where I'm standing. Not from where I'm standing.
Our left, your right.
I'm standing on the far left. See, everything's relative. Not everything, but that is. Why don't we start here and we'll go back and forth.
Thank you all. By the way, you have to turn that one on. I don't think it's turned on. Thank you all. Well, this is for Dean Slaughter, basically. You began with some facts, so if I could just preface this with some of the way I perceive the facts, and, you know, in the Socratic spirit, to help you understand why this might seem differently to some people. So one fact I think you overlooked is that, taking, for example, the 75th anniversary celebration, not a single keynote speaker was unaffiliated with government or military. Not one. There was not a single independent journalist, there was not a single political commentator. In a word, there was no one who might represent the point of view that exists outside of both Democratic and Republican military and government officials. That happens to include, incidentally, probably 80% of the world, not to mention a significant part of this country. The General Petraeus talk, for instance. Now, assuming, giving you the benefit of the doubt that you sincerely believe, in your own words, that you believe these individuals should be absolutely grilled, take, say, General Petraeus. Here's someone who participated actively as commander of the 101st Airborne in Iraq in the demolition of Fallujah, reducing it to rubble, driving out 300,000 people from their homes. About 9,000 of them came back in the end to rubble. Occupying Fallujah General Hospital in direct contradiction to the Geneva Conventions, using illegal weapons, according to an American-appointed Iraqi health official, and who is responsible, in large part, for the death of several thousand civilians in Fallujah. Now, if we have a dean who is committed to absolutely grilling someone like that, what would you expect to get? Well, the answer to that I'll leave to the audience, but what we did get is someone who you provided introductory remarks by making a joke about how amused you were that he responded to an email from you in the middle of the Battle of Fallujah. It's on webcast, everyone can see it. Now, when I hear something like that, I am inclined not to believe you that you are committed to grilling these people. My question, I'm sorry for taking so long. I would feel much at ease if you, just following up on the line that Mr. Brzezinski brought up, without questioning anyone's motivations, I would feel much more comfortable if I got from you tonight, in front of everybody, a promise that you do not have ambitions in Washington in the next 10 or so years. I would, as ridiculous as it might be, I would feel much more comfortable.
Can I interrupt? As moderator, I don't think it's a fair question, and I wouldn't ask you to answer it.
Thank you. This is not about me, but I do think your point about the Fallujah one is a very serious one, because quite frankly, I was very disturbed and deeply disturbed about what I see as the failure to actually prosecute fully Abu Ghraib, and the very fact that we were there. That's the question I asked. It is a question that I feel very strongly about. It is obviously not the only question one could have asked him, and absolutely one could have asked him about the Battle of Fallujah. And from that point of view, yes, I was introducing him. Part of your job is to introduce people and to try to make things a little light if possible. And I was amazed that he answered at 4:30 in the Battle of Fallujah, but I think listening to you and thinking about that was... It was a missed opportunity, but more importantly, it was making light of something that is not to be made light of. I quite agree with that.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Brzezinski, I was wondering, do you have any other cases and points whatsoever to prove that there's open politicization or lobbying or selling out within the administration of this university or the academic community here? Because I may not have been here long enough, I'm only a freshman, but in the past several months, this is getting away from the 75th anniversary. I've heard Seymour Hersh speak here, asked him a question personally after his lecture. He opened up for plenty of questions. And General William T. Odom, former NSA director, if you want somebody who's against the policies that this country's pursuing, my God, he said we should practically arm Iran. And the professor who introduced him for his lecture and took him out to dinner that very night was a professor who Dean Slaughter, I believe, called upon to ask the final question to Condoleeza Rice. So, again, maybe I'm missing it. The carpet's over my eyes, but I'm not detecting, again, what's the most vital thing this flyer says we're here to discuss, whether there's politicization inside of this university or whether they're just going for the second best. As a follow-up to that, would you accept what Dean Slaughter is saying, that we should accept maybe whatever we can get from these people? They want to polemicize, just let them arrive here.
The second question, again, you may not like the answers I'll give, but then again, I'll be leaving here tomorrow. No, I don't accept what Dean Slaughter said. She sets up her own straw men and then she blows them over, but they weren't the points that I made. The issue isn't second best. What we got was fourth or fifth best, and we could have had something far, far better, and we should have had something far, far better. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a very, I believe, carefully structured event. I believe what I told you already in my remarks. It's interesting that for some reason the dean doesn't want to answer a simple question about whether or not she's using this university as a stepping stone, as some of us believe. That's her prerogative not to answer it. The politicization of the university, you ask for proof. Proof is very hard to come by. That's why we have courts, we have discovery processes. There's not much transparency at this university. We don't know what the speaker fees are. We don't know a great deal about what's going on here, but something has come to my attention which I find highly questionable, and so I'll answer your question with what's come to my attention. You have at this university now, at the Wilson School, a former ambassador who will be in residence for 5 years to discuss Middle East events, and he's already beginning to arrange Middle East events literally in the next few weeks. I don't know how much money was given to the university. The dean would know that. I do know who gave the large sum of money. In fact, the Ambassador Kurtzer's professorship is named after the person. The person is extremely wealthy and has a very long history in pro-Israeli, anti-Arab causes. A great deal of money apparently has been given to the university. Ambassador Kurtzer, who himself is one of the... Look, when I went to Washington, I was a kid, I represented the World Jewish Congress, I've been inside this loop, so I know what's going on. Dean Kurtzer is essentially one of the people brought in during the Clinton administration. They were given appointments dealing with the Middle East peace process. It was largely a payoff by Clinton for those who had helped him during his campaign. I could give you story after story about this that might help convince you there's something to this. Let's just say the president of the Israeli lobby was forced to resign during Clinton's first campaign after he was overheard bragging that he had 12 operatives in the Little Rock headquarters of Bill Clinton, and when Clinton became president, he was going to be their man. Sure enough, he quickly appointed many of the people who were working for the Near East Institute, which had been set up by AIPAC, the official Israeli lobby, and I could go on and on about this, but nevertheless, the point that you're asking, it's not just does Cy Hirsch come and speak here for a few minutes one day, or does Noam Chomsky come, as I said. You will get at a university like this a sprinkle of this and a sprinkle of that. What you won't get is the consistency that's needed. What you won't get is the right kind of programming. What you won't get is the right kind of major events and keynote speakers. And in the case of Middle East, you're now going to be subjected to Dean Kurtzer's way of arranging things, and he's already put 2 programs on the agenda. The first person that he's helped invite is coming, I think, in a couple of weeks, Dennis Ross. Dennis Ross was also an ambassador. First he worked for the Israeli Jewish lobby, then he worked for the government, then within weeks of working for the government, he went right back to the Israeli lobby, where he's now one of the central figures in Washington. Then Dean Kurtzer is coming to Washington, and he's arranged an affair about what's coming next in the Middle East and about the Hamas electoral victory, and who's on the podium. The ambassador of Israel, his friend, the ambassador of Jordan, his friend, and the discredited ambassador of the Palestinians, but not the Palestinians who have been elected by their people, but rather the VIP Palestinians who the Americans and the Israelis have been paying for all these years. Even if they were not his friends, and even if the forum were broader than it is, why in the world do we need Princeton University to come to Washington to arrange to hear the same old, tired speakers, all of whom are friends of each other, and all of whom have nothing new to say, and all of whom have led us into this mess? That's not what we need Princeton for. That's happening in Washington every day, from the government-sponsored think tanks and from the lobbying think tanks. We need a university to offer us something serious, independent, new, and real. And that's not what we're getting from Princeton.
We have